This was the 54th edition of the Rás, and once again this unique race had attracted a strong international field, with the 144 riders being split up into 15 international teams and 14 county teams. There were several innovations introduced this year by race organiser Dermot Dignam, a start in Tallaght and a team time trial in Ancararua, while for the first time in 10 years the race was to finish with an open road stage instead of the traditional criterium. The route was to take in a clockwise journey around the southern half of the country, with stage ends in Enniscorthy, Cove, Ondangan, Listowel, Ancararua, Westport, Clara and Skerries. Not a route though to test the strong climbers, with just a solitary Category 1 climb at the Mom in County Kerry between Castle Island and Listowel. Last year's winner, Chris Newton, was back again, this time with 2 World Track Gold medals under his belt and a fine showing in the Commonwealth Games, and this time with a strong-looking Great Britain's recycling team. The weather was fairly miserable at the official start in the old village of Tallaght, and it was to remain wet for most of the trip to Enniscorthy. Coming out of Blessington, former US Under-23 champion Mike Friedman had built up a lead of nearly a minute, and he was being pursued by 3 riders that included Canturk's Paddy O'Brien of the Grant Thornton Irish team. After an hour clear out on his own, Friedman was caught. The first climb of the week came after just 4 kilometres, and it had gone to Kieran Power. Power won the Rás in 1998 and 2002 and was home from America riding for the Dan Morrissey squad. The embankment was one of 4 opportunities on the stage for riders to pick up time bonuses, including the finish at Enniscorthy. Shortly after Tullow, the 1996 champion Tommy Evans joined up with the Polish rider Martin Pradnowski, as well as the Slovakian. Evans in the blue colours of Dublin Usher this year, but this group too were reeled in, with the peloton chasing very hard, and they were caught roundabout Bunclody. Well, thankfully the rain had stopped by the time they arrived in Enniscorthy. But there was still the small matter of a steep finish at Duffrey Hill to face. And going up the climb, Evans thought he had the stage won, but the Banbridge man celebrated fractionally too soon and allowed Chris Newton to take advantage and the stage by less than the width of a tyre. So the defending champion Chris Newton started where he left off last year, donning the yellow jersey. Newton is a track specialist, but was still very keen to defend his title this year.
Gentlemen, tonight, after stage 1 of the FBD Insurance Rás, these are the men of the Rás!
With time bonuses included, Newton's lead was just 4 seconds from Tommy Evans of Dublin Usher.
I would have liked not to have taken a jersey so early, but the opportunity of the stage run presented itself, and we discussed the night before that if such occasion should arise, then just take it. And that's what I did, you know. Just got Tommy on the line, and obviously with the first stage when the yellow jersey comes with it.
Day 2 was the longest of the week, and the 180 kilometres ridden in strong cross winds were to provide plenty of action. Heading for his native city, the man with the polka dot jersey, Kieran Power, started cranking things up at the climb at Glenmore. And as they crossed the River Suir at Waterford, a leading group of 15 had joined up that included race leader Chris Newton and most of the top Irish riders, including local man Power, David O'Loughlin, Ryan Connor and Brian Keneally. But they were just 30 seconds clear at this stage. By the time they reached the sweep above Dungarvan, there was a quartet clear, with Martin Pradnowski, a Slovakian riding for the Norwegian team, leading Danny Pate and the 2 Englishmen, Rain Randall and Robin Sharman, over the top. As they crossed the River Blackwater at Youghal, the gap was getting bigger and bigger. With 4 kilometres to go, Pradnowski took the final climb of the day above Youghal, where this group's lead had stretched to over 5 minutes. And on the run into Cove, the bunch gained slightly on the leaders. And yet again, we had a spectacularly steep finish, this time outside the cathedral in Cove. And it was Danny Pate, the former World Under-23 time trial champion, who had the strongest legs up the ascent.
Winning stage 2 of the FBD Insurance Rás, he is Danny Pate from the USA. What a great ride for this young man. The young man.
In front of a large crowd, he finished 27 seconds clear of Pravnovsky, with 42-year-old Wayne Randall of the Doncaster team third and Robin Sharman of the Great Britain recycling team in fourth place. The chasing bunch was led up the hill by Chris Newton, some 3 minutes and 40 seconds behind the winner, while Tommy Evans was once again the best placed Irish rider in 9th place.
Danny Pate.
So on a day that saw most of the Irish riders slip down the leaderboard, Danny Pate of the USA TIA CREF team took over the yellow jersey.
Ladies and gentlemen, these are the men of the Ross.
Pate's lead was 27 seconds from Pravnovsky, with Newton now down to 6th place, some 3.5 minutes behind, with Tommy Evans in 7th place.
It's like a once-a-year experience, really, like for the likes of us. It's great. It's lovely to rub shoulders with the likes of Chris Newton and those like pros, and even the likes of Kieran Power and David O'Loughlin.
Yeah, this is my 7th one, so you think I'd have a bit of sense at this stage, but you always give it a lash anyway, just try your best, that's the main thing, you know. That's just a sense of achievement, really, to sort of get through it and to be racing against the likes of Chris Newton and that world champions and Olympic medalists and that sort of stuff. It's a great achievement.
If crosswinds had been the order of the day for stage 2, the following day the winds were on the nose for most of the journey to Ondangan. Probably the most sheltered part of the route was the Jack Lynch tunnel, and despite some early skirmishes, they were all together as they went under the lee. It was on the approach to Macroom nearly an hour later that the first significant move came, but Craig Sweetman of the Meath M. Donnelly team was the only Irish rider there. You can't beat modern technology. Going around Killarney, there was a lead group of 30 riders, some 2 3/4 minutes clear, but it was a lead group minus the yellow jersey of Danny Pate and the next 3 riders in general classification: Martin Pravnovsky, Wayne Randall and Robert Sharman. After the climb at Crohan, Ray Clark of the Dan Morrissey team made an unsuccessful bid to go out clear on his own. And as they headed down the Dingle Peninsula, exactly half of this group were Irish, including the likes of David O'Loughlin, Paudie O'Brien and Tommy Evans and Micheál Fitzgerald. But also there was the defending champion Chris Newton and 2 of his teammates. With 10 kilometres to go in pretty miserable conditions at Lisbole, the lead group was still together. And Martin Pravnovsky in the blue jersey was leading the chasing bunch. And it was the lead group that contested the finish on the wet streets of Ondangan, making sure not to slip on this dangerous last corner just before the climb up to the finish. And victory went to the 24-year-old Australian Joshua Marden, who led in Lukas Modwiecki of Poland with Clonmel's Micheál Fitzgerald in the colours of MyHome.ie Cycleways third. And the man who was to go into yellow, American Mike Friedman, came in fourth.
These are the men of the Ross.
We were inexperienced, we didn't know anything about international, but today's races, I mean, you have all these international teams, they know all about cycling, coaching, their bicycles. You can see the kind of a bicycle that I rode and the bike they have today. But having said that, you know, we still had to pedal, didn't we?
But after 3 stages of the Ross, it was Mike Friedman of the TIA CREF team, who now was in the yellow jersey.
The weather's not nice, but sure, it's not nice for everybody. It's been good so far. It's an unusual route this year because it's not too hilly. Like today is the hilly day, so we'll see after today.
It's our own national tour, riding in Belgium all year, so it's great to come home and race. The weather's making the racing. It's very hard race, and the weather and the roads, and so far it's been a very hard race the last 3 days.
Sadly, what should have been a spectacular trip around Sleigh Head was spoiled by mist and rain. And an extra obstacle on the way was the ford at Fahone, where 4 riders had gone clear, including Dennis Lynch and Martin O'Loughlin. However, as they proceeded around the loop back to Ondangan, they were soon to be caught, and dual winner Kieran Power was also to lose the King of the Mountains jersey on this stretch. Not long afterwards, Power was part of a 7-man group that pulled clear on the way back down the Dingle Peninsula. 3 other Irish riders were part of that group: Dennis Lynch and Micheál Fitzgerald of the Cork Murray Ford team, and John McCarthy of Kerry, Earl of Desmond. At this stage, the new leader on the road was Australian Peter Herzig. Well, heading for Castle Island, the lead group was about to be caught by an even stronger bunch that included the likes of David O'Loughlin, Tommy Evans and Simon Kelly. Above Castle Island, the riders had to go up the only Category 1 climb of this year's Ross at the Mom. First up was Lucas Modzelewski ahead of Peter Herzig and Germany's Greg Ryan, and Power was fourth. On the descent into Listowel, there was a great dice between Power and Modzelewski over the last 10 kilometres. And at the finish line on Market Street in Listowel, it was Power who just got there. He got over the line 1 second ahead of the pole, with David O'Loughlin making a brave bid to move into yellow, coming in third, 4 seconds behind. Then came Tommy Evans and Danny Pate. Australian Cody Stevenson led in the bunch, a minute behind. So at the halfway stage of the FBD Insurance Rás, American Danny Pate held on to the lead.
These are the men of the Rás!
It was a fantastic day, you know. We were away with a group of 6 all day. Then the main contenders came across. I still had some legs and managed to get away in the last couple of kilometres there and held off the pole in the sprint, so it worked out perfect.
And this is how the leaderboard looked after 4 stages, with Pate just 1 second clear of David O'Loughlin of the Grant Thornton Ireland team. Getting to the start of the 5th stage on Thursday involved a ferry trip across the Shannon Estuary from Tarbert to Kilrush.
We have one teammate still in a position to maybe take the jersey to help me out, and maybe he slips back into it. And besides maybe that happening, we'll try and defend it best we can.
But Dermot Dignam and his team of volunteers, for the most part, do a fantastic job. But in particular, they don't get an awful lot of credit some of the time, and that's the stage end organisers, who do a fantastic job in preparing the stage end, getting the crowds out to cheer every cyclist home, and then of course the guards. Without them, this race wouldn't happen. They close off streets, towns, all over the country for us to ensure the safety of the riders and everyone else participating in it, and they deserve great credit.
As the riders headed off towards the Burren, they enjoyed the best weather of the week. No wind, no rain, and temperatures rocketing to a record high of 16 degrees. Well, early on, around Quilty, a lead group of 10 riders got together and opened up a gap of around a minute, going through Milltown Malbay, Lahinch and Ennistimon. Among that group were 4 Irish riders: Ryan Connor of Grant Thornton Ireland, Stephen Sullivan, Ray Clark and Mark Cassidy. Mark, of course, a son of 2-times winner Philip Cassidy. In and around Listowel Varna, that lead group had a 40-second gap that was increasing all the time. But 10 kilometres later, the 2 groups were to merge on the descent down from Corkscrew Hill. And going through even more picturesque country, through the likes of Bell Harbour and Kinvara, that lead group kept pulling further and further away. Here we see the leaders going past Kinvara Castle, with the main peloton quite a distance behind. And on the outskirts of Galway, they had stretched their lead to nearly 7 minutes. And that meant that Brian Keneally of MeadMyHome.ie Cycleways was just a minute off going into the lead on the road as they crossed the Corrib. By Moycullen, with 50 kilometres to go, the gap was down to around 5 minutes and narrowing all the time. And there was a tricky bend to negotiate at Uachtarard before the final climb of the day at Shanafeisting. And once again, the final climb of the day was to set up the stage finish. Jaroslav Welniak was first up the climb above Uachtarard, ahead of Ryan Connor, with American Lucas User third. And there was a breakneck descent on the way down from Shanafeisting through Castla towards Ancalarua, the third Gaeltacht of this year's Ross, and the Poles dominated the finish, with Welniak getting home ahead of Bartholomew Matisiak, with 23-year-old Ballymena man Ryan Connor third. There was a bit of a gap before the remaining riders in the lead group came in, with Ray Clark fourth, Mark Cassidy sixth and Brian Keneally 10th. But with 5 stages completed, nothing had changed at the business end of the race, with Danny Pate still leading by that 1 second from David O'Loughlin of Ireland Grant Thornton, with Dublin Ushers Tommy Evans joined third with Morten Hegerberg of Norway. Thursday's action was divided in two, with a 25-kilometre team time trial around on Carlalua in the morning and an 83-kilometre road stage to Westport in the afternoon. The decision to award time penalties instead of using real time for the time trial and to have a separate county category had a big bearing on who would wear yellow into Westport. And it was the British squad led by track world champion Chris Newton who won the international section covering the 25 kilometres in 31 minutes and 13 seconds, with USA second, Norway third and Ireland fourth, some 6 minutes slower. However, the Dublin Usher team of Tommy Evans won the county category, and the 15 seconds bonus that came with winning lifted Evans into yellow, 8 seconds clear of Christian House of the Great Britain team and American Danny Pate, with David O'Loughlin now fifth at 29 seconds. The afternoon stage took a very scenic route through the Mam Valley amongst the 12 bends, and despite a broken spoke, Evans was in a lead group for most of the day, and that included Christian House, two of his British teammates, as well as David O'Loughlin and Kieran Power. However, it was Power and O'Loughlin's colleague Ryan Connor, as well as Belgian Yehudi Schoenacker of the Sean Kelly team, who were to break away with 20 kilometres to go.
Well done, he's finished inside the...
And up Mill Street in Westport, it was Kieran Power who took his second stage of the week ahead of Schoenacker, with Ryan Connor third. 42 seconds later, Polish rider Lukas Modzelewski led in a bunch, with Matthew Ward in fifth place.
And here they come. Here comes David O'Loughlin this side. The man is right now. Tommy Evans defending.
With Tommy Evans fading towards the end, Christian House took advantage to claim the yellow jersey. With just 2 stages left on the 2006 FBD Insurance Rás, House became the 6th rider to wear the yellow jersey, but he was only there on points countback because he was on the same time as American Danny Pate. And as they gathered in Westport the following morning, it was looking good for the Irish in at least one category.
We've had a tremendous week of race. Unfortunately, one of our younger riders just lost leadership in the Irish Sports Council classification for the best young rider, but there's still 2 days to go, so we may have an Irish winner there. We may have an Irish winner overall.
The race is still really tight. There's absolutely no time between me and Danny Pate. So, you know, it's still anyone's game. You never know what's going to happen on the Rás, so, you know, I found myself in this position. So we've got a very strong team, so we're going to be able to, you know, give it a good shot holding on to it.
When you're hoping to defend the yellow jersey, the sort of day you want is one like Saturday, with really strong tailwinds, which make it very difficult for riders to shake off the pursuers. Coming out of Castlebar, there was a 9-strong group, half a minute clear and pulling away from the peloton. 4 of them were Irish: Roger Aiken of the Irish Grant Thornton team, Tim Barry of Dan Morrissey, Michael Fitzgerald of Cork Murray Ford, and John Mason of Meath MyHome.ie Cycleways, the team that was pushing Dublin Usher for the county award. But with the Poles and the English driving the bunch, the average speed was up to 46 kilometres per hour along the road. As they left Roscommon with 50 kilometres still to go, the lead group was down to 5 in number, with Mason and Fitzgerald dropped, and the advantage was up to a minute and a half. And as they headed around the Athlone bypass, not only had they the wind at their backs, but they were also enjoying some welcome sunshine, with the Irish team reacting and making another bid to catch the yellow jersey. And just beyond Moat, with 10 kilometres to go, the leaders were caught. And in the sunshine at Clara, we had the first bunch sprint of the week, a spectacular finish that saw Poland's Bartolomew Matysiak just preventing Kieran Parr from winning his 3rd stage of the week. Another Pole, Lukas Modzelewski, came 3rd. Race leader Christian House finished in 9th place to retain the yellow jersey, still in the same time as Danny Pate, but still ahead on points.
These are the men of the Ross.
The last few years has been pretty controlled. Like the recycling boys controlled it last year, and the year before it was between the Irish and the Slovenians. So this year it's it's completely different.
This year there was it's just longer stages and faster, an awful lot faster.
Hopefully the wind is not too strong from the side. It's a tailwind, everything is great. If it's a crosswind, we're in trouble.
Back to work tomorrow, so there's no rest. We're not like the pros here. They go off and train tomorrow. We've all go back to work, so it's just part and parcel of it.
This was the first time for 10 years that the Ross had ended with an open road stage, and with things so tight at the top of the leaderboard, every second on the trip to Skerries was going to be vital. 3 riders, Ryan Connor, Ray Clark and Simon Saunders, went clear early on between Kilbeggan and Tyrrell's Pass, but this didn't present any threat whatever to the yellow jersey. And going through a Toth, Saunders had been dropped and Connor and Clark had a lead of 1.5 minutes, but they were to be caught at Knoll. And as they arrived on the 2-lap circuit at Skerries, Kieran Parr took enough points on the 2 climbs at the Black Hills, making sure he would keep the King of the Mountains jersey. But after 8 days on the road, the Ross was to be decided on the 2 13-kilometre laps around the seaside town of Skerries. Parr was in a group of 3 that led through the finish line the first time, but really the Ross ended much the same as a criterium, with no rider capable of getting ahead of the peloton. Christian House looking very confident indeed in the middle of the bunch, and why shouldn't he, with such a strong team around him to defend his lead. Things were hotting up towards the end of the 2nd lap, and as they came out of the bridge, they were cracking themselves up for a sprint finish. And in front of a very large turnout in Skerries for the 2nd day in a row, there was a bunch sprint to the finish, with victory on the final stage going to Norway's Morten Hergeberg, just ahead of Simon Kelly, with Tommy Evans of Dublin Usher 4th, the race leader Christian House safely home in 5th, while Kieran Parr came in 7th.
Big round of applause, that's young man.
The international award for this year's Ross went to the Norwegian team. The best county team was Meath MyHome.ie Cycleways. But the most important award, the winner of the 2006 FBD Insurance Rás, was Christian House of the Great Britain Recycling Team.
Tonight, in Skerries, these are the men of the Ross.
Confirmation there of the top 5, with House taking the Ross on points from Danny Pate, while King of the Mountains Kieran Parr of Dan Morrissey was the only Irish rider to win a jersey.
The Ross, it turned upside down on itself a few times in this race. I don't think this jersey's changed hands so many times. So and for the finish to be so close, it was yeah, pretty impressive. I'm well happy with it. You know, I owe that all to my team. They rode perfectly for the past 2 days, and you know, I couldn't ask for anything more. So.